deployed in the distant past. They lead to significant implications for our understanding of the history of human civilization on this planet. We, in today's modern civilization, can only achieve such precision and flatness with the use of very sophisticated mechanized and computer-guided tools and technology. The results shown in this documentary, showing a smoothness or a rugosity much like that of glass, are leagues beyond anything ever done purely by hand. So let me make something of a plea, and this goes out to all the skeptics of this topic and to all the experimentalists who have declared victory simply because they have shown that it is possible to shape stone with primitive tools and technologies. Not that I think anyone has ever really disputed that, and certainly I haven't. Please watch this documentary, and please try to replicate these results using the methods you claim can achieve them. Even try to just explain them from your primitive technology perspective. I'd be quite entertained to hear it.
Okay, Ben, as one of the experimentalists, that apparently experimentalist is a naughty thing to be, I'll explain to you the principles behind it and I'll show you how to do it. Challenge accepted.
Engineers and these stone carvers' margin for error. So it's in this area that I think BAM has really moved the discussion forward. Patrice and his team, including geologist Eric Gunthier, who also appeared in Revelations of the Pyramids, they used modern surface roughness meters to determine just how flat and precise are some of the surfaces of worked stone in places like Pumapunku, the Serapeum of Saqqara, and the incredible granite caves of Barabar in India. The results are, to be frank, astonishing.
Okay, let's start with this one. You can see from the surface, this is not spectacular, astonishing. These results are not astonishing. These results are quite normal, quite mediocre in that sense. It's cringe that you would like just look at the stone. It is not polished. It's barely even defined as honed. So this is cringe. This is not astonishing. This is quite embarrassing for the people who apparently are researchers into this.
Engineers and these stone carvers' margin for error. So it's in this area that I think BAM has really moved the discussion forward. Patrice and his team, including geologist Eric Gunthier, who also appeared in Revelations of the Pyramids, they used modern surface roughness meters to determine just how flat and precise are some of the surfaces of worked stone.
All right, number one, surface roughness is not a measurement of flatness. So this taints everything which comes after the declarations of precision, perfect flatness measured with a surface roughness meter. You're just not using the correct tool. Here we see what was, or possibly still is, the most perfect sphere ever made. It's a sphere. It's the opposite of perfect flatness. It has a surface roughness much smoother than the best surface at the Barabar Caves. Surface roughness indicators meters are not tools for measuring flatness, as a thermometer is not a tool for measuring weight. So you've, again, wrong tool. You don't know the basics of what you're talking about in this. It's a furphy. This pebble I'm holding, it reflects light, but notice it also has this small pitting on it, just like the impossible precision flatness. So therefore, this pebble I'm holding is precision flatness. I do declare, and as you can see, I have a pipe, so therefore I'm an authoritative source. This is just one classic example of the Dunning-Kruger effect and the lost high technology community who are illiterate in the topics that they are talking about.
Me dio tiempo nada ponerme la chancla y el bañador. Voy a la playa, había subido la marea.
Down in the single digits of microns, a micron being 1,000th the part of a millimeter. If you want the imperial conversion for that, there are 25,400 microns in a single inch. And we're talking about measurements on some of these surfaces that challenge even these scales. A difference in flatness as low as 1.5 microns was measured on some of these artifacts and surfaces. For all intents and purposes, perfectly flat.
You stupid!
Barabar Caves, mirror finish. impossible precision, lost high ancient technology. It must be. Well, let's have a look at that. So here are some common images on the left. This is the most common image, and on the right we see the same thing. Notice anything similar in those two? Well, okay, let's look a bit further. So here are a couple of others. Again, the Wikipedia article on Mauryan polish, and it's impossible, and it's somehow some sort of lost high technology. There's an image as well. I'm sorry, the one on the right, and on the left here's just another one. Do a search and this is what you find. Well, okay, let's examine these. Okay, perfect flatness. It must be advanced machining technology, precision machining technology. You cannot do this by hand. Well, skeptical pipe deployed. If it's so flat, why are there such obvious distortions in the reflection? Now, focus on the one on the left. That's far from a mirror finish. That's a reflection, but it is like a mirror. If you saw a mirror like that, you would take it back, would be rejected. And the same thing with the one on the right. They are obvious distortions in the reflection. I don't know how this could be argued. Now notice on the floor, the light comes in through the door. Light comes in through the door. Seems to be a straight line, but the reflection is very warped, very distorted. So if it's so flat, why is this? This should not be the case if it's so perfectly flat. The reflection should be a reflection, a mirror reflection, not this heavily distorted low-res image. It should be at least something comparable to that. So if it's so flat, why are there such obvious distortions in the reflection? If it's so flat and so well advanced, precision machined, why are the reflections so poor? If it's so flat and perfect, these caves, and obvious machining technology, why are the photos always taken from the same locations? If it's so flat with precision machine level of mirroring, then why is the camera never seen in the reflection? We'll review that footage in a moment, because the camera is never seen in the reflection. Same thing's happening with these photos. We have a light source, and there we have the reflection there at the angle. You could, in a very loose term, say that this is a mirror, but it's a very poor quality mirror, and it's not a true mirror because a mirror would reflect the camera. A mirror, even a poor quality one, whether it is flat or curved, should reflect the camera directly. You can see examples of this right here. Why is it so flat? If it's so flat, why are there such obvious distortions in the reflection? Because it is not flat. I do not need precision, advanced, modern machining to tell me that. I can look at that with the eye and see that this is not flat. There you can see on the left-hand side, obviously not flat. No, there is no sane, experienced person who has any basic knowledge in this matter who would look at this image and declare it to be flat. You do not need a surface roughness indicator, which is not even a measurement of flatness to begin with, to see that. You don't need a repeat meter, what is actually used to measure flatness. You do not need these to note that it is not. Same thing on the image on the right. Even the floor is not flat. The walls are not flat. Take this to the bank. It is 100% science verified. No experienced, qualified, even hobbyist in these topics would look at this and declare this to be flat. It is ridiculous. On the left-hand side, we see a flat steel plate. Or is it polished? Might be polished aluminium, but polished steel. And on the lower left, we see an example of bad bodywork. I do not need a precision, advanced, modern machine measure tool to tell me that that steel metal plate is not flat. Just by looking at the reflections, I can absolutely, with 100% certainty, tell you it is not flat to a precision level. The light will not lie. The reflections will not lie. The distortions in the curved surface on the bottom left, will absolutely tell me that this is a poor quality polish job. You can even see that one panel is the panel furthest away is higher quality reflection for one closest to the camera. The distortions are so obvious that, again, you do not need advanced precision machining, modern measuring equipment to tell you this. The distortions in the surface are all you need to immediately dismiss any claims of perfection or precision at all. Not to be disputed, no correspondence will be entered to. It is just a fact. Notice that in this footage we have a very poor reflection, even with the camera light, as you can see, shining on there, and there is no mirror reflection. Only occurs at that angle. Wouldn't they have asked the question, like this impossible mirror polish finish, why are they not getting a reflection in there? It only occurs at that time, at that angle, in there. It is unbelievable that they're so illiterate in these topics. All right, here's another key point about this. They seem to go shopping for these results. Why don't they, just pick a spot, go around? But they're going around and they're looking and they're finding what they want, and they're ignoring that which they do not want you to see, where it is far from this. Now, even that distribute from 3 down to 1, why couldn't they maintain that across? Because any other polisher would have a similar result and maintain it across the surface. This is not the case even with their best results. Another point, they never show, and this is a common theme, you never show, like whether it's the pyramid or Serapeum or these other features, they never show lingering shots and high detail of the entire structure. They pick one little spot, get you to focus on that, poison a well with precision. Now I'm looking at this wall and I can see all sorts of problems where I can guarantee you that you're not going to get that surface flatness across the whole surface. They pick one spot, one time of day, and they edit out all of that which does not fit their narrative, scan across rather than allow you to see what they don't want you to see. I would not be able to see these imperfections only with the naked eye or to feel them by hand. So these claims that, well, you can't see them, you can't feel them by the naked eye, you cannot feel them by your fingers, by your hand, and this argument presented by the BAM, for instance, are ridiculous statements to be made. Anyone even vaguely interested in this topic wouldn't know how, would just like instantly dismiss this. I don't need precision machine with a little knowledge. A little knowledge is all it takes. I can detect without advanced measuring modern instruments that this is not flat. The Barabar Caves are not flat. This panel work on the car is not flat. This metal plate is not flat. I can bring all the surface roughness indicators that I want into this. I do not need them. Anyone vaguely involved in a trade which does even basic polishing will tell you that immediately. It is just ridiculous. The same issues that go back to that earlier mirror finish can be seen here. Poor quality reflections, angled reflections. It's the direction of the light which defines this. The camera is never, even we'll look at the footage, even when they film close up, you can see there's no reflection, and even the reflection which is visible at 1 micron surface roughness is very poor. These are not precision, these are not flat, these are not advanced Morian unexplainable polishing. I'll show you again how to do this very quickly and very easily, utterly bunk. I'll show you the video, I'll show you how to do it there at the end. I get better quality reflections. I was able to get out the pitting on the surface. In a very short time, I was able not only to replicate it, but to do much better than the impossible Morian polish. I am a skeptard experimentalist, like, oh God, shock horror. I'm such a horrible person to be skeptical and to actually conduct experiments. But I was able to do better or at least equal, depends on your version, but I'm looking at the reflect. I see less distortions. I see no pitting in my experiments. The polishing was done from a honed surface in 10 to 20 minutes using nothing but sand and water. I got better quality to that. You can do it too. Anyone can do this. It is so easy. Anyone, as long as they stop pointing at stones for a few minutes and actually try rubbing some stones together, you can do it. Anyone can do it. It's piss easy. It's just that easy. As with creating a flat surface, creating a polish is incredibly simple. Now, a flat surface, I'll discuss it in a moment. For instance, to create an actual precision flat surface, not the fake precision promoted by the lost high technology, but an actual precision surface, you use the Whitworth free plate technique, still the basis for that sort of precision work to this day. Polish it, and then understanding sandpaper. Now, these lost ancient high technologists want to tell you about ancient machining processes, and they don't understand the basic principles of sandpaper, and they're going to tell you about advanced in machines and what's impossible with copper and what's impossible with this. This is it's crazy town. It really is. They have no friggin' idea. It's basically sandpaper. This was 10 minutes of polishing of a flat plate, which was at a matte finish, and then I just noticed it's the angle of the light. It's not a mirror finish when observed from the front, just like the Barabar Caves. It all has to do with a trick of light and shadow. Now, I've been running that, literally I just rubbed stones together. I filtered off, I crushed some sandstone, poured it in a jar, put in water, filtered off the water at the top to get the finer stuff. The heavier stuff sits at the bottom. I get the very fine grit, which floats in the water, poured that off to make a fine abrasive, and that's the stone you're seeing there. That's it. I went for 17 minutes. I wasn't using corundum. I was using just crushed sandstone. With there again, I'll put the links to other videos where I show you how to, because this stone originally was very rough on top. So how do you get it to flat? You rub two stones together. You want to get precision flat, you rub three stones together: A to B, B to C, C to A. It is just that simple, and that's still the method now that nature insists on it. But this mirror finish, I have firstly no pitting, and I have a better reflection than what's found at the Barabar Caves. So I rubbed some stone together to get it flat. Once it was reasonably, and I went to the effort of removing the pits, and then I polished it for 17 minutes. Or I probably didn't need to go that long. I just wanted to be sure. 10 to 20 minutes. 20 minutes more than enough. So lost high technology is a scam. I'll put the full playlist link in the description, but literally the first experiment I did with granite was to rub two stones together. It's just that simple. And so the first one, we had these circular saw marks. How long does it take to remove them? It takes a very short time, and I was completely a noob, and I was only using sand, some crushed quartz, a very you could call it an emery mix, but there was so little corundum in there it was negligible. But sandstone on granite. Now, point will be, well, that was only a small area. Well, firstly, I used a small stone on a larger area, so I could use a larger stone on an even larger area. Secondly, by actually conducting the experiments and having some interest in stonework rather than pointing at stones and saying mystery, mystery. In a very short, my first experiment, I learnt that the mud mixture will, so even not just doing it horizontally, but even vertically. So as you can see there, the stone sticks to the block. So I could have a heavy stone grinding on the wall. I wouldn't have to support all that weight, or I could even just attach a rope to it from a frame, but you don't need that. Just by experience, there's no better teacher than experience, and it's just that simple. Those links will be there in the description. So very, very cheeky of Ben to demand that the experimentalists show him things. Well, firstly, I did this a long time ago, and I didn't need, it's like rub two stones together, you're going to get flatness. It's a simple thing. You take two spheres, sandstone, whatever, rub them together and they're going to become flat. It is such a basic principle in there, and with a little bit more experimentation, like for instance realizing that keeping the consistency of the mud, I can get the block to stick. I can work a larger area. Now another thing will be, if I have a larger area, just like if I sanded a piece of wood, I wouldn't sand one spot and then move over. You keep rotating and sliding over. It's a very simple principle for anyone with even very low experience, low skills would either figure that out very quickly or sort of just know it intuitively. Full list to the description in there, making, bringing down to a flat surface. I even hold a straight edge and shine a light against the back. It's a flat surface. If you want to learn more, and I'll put in a whole bunch of links in the description, but how do they make precision flat surfaces now? Well, we'll look at that first, and that's this clip.
We in today's modern civilization can only achieve such precision and flatness with the use of very sophisticated mechanized and computer-guided tools and technology.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
We in today's modern civilization can only achieve such precision and flatness with the use of very sophisticated mechanized and computer-guided tools and technology.
You serious?
We in today's modern society, civilization, can only achieve precision flatness with super advanced precision machinery. Well, okay. I'll put links in here. There's so many: the science of flatness, origins of precision, granite surface plates, surface plate calibration and conditioning. These precision flat items were originally made by hand and are still made and calibrated by hand. So how did they make the first precision machines? Well, before modern precision CNC machines, there were just machines, and this was a big issue in regards to mass production, and then development of precision was needed in weaponry, and then further development such with aeronautics. Further and further higher precision was required, and precision had to do with standardization so that each part could be replaced. You wanted a precisely made bolt that would fit not just into one rifle but would be also fit into another. That's the essence of precision. People were, whether it was old-fashioned clocks, they were precisely made, but each clock, each watch was only good for itself. You could not replace one part with another watch. So precision is just the quality of the work, but what does they say precision? It actually means something, and it has to do with exactly what I explained with standardization, so that pieces will fit together, but you can also replace one piece with another. There's no point having a USB stick if the USB doesn't fit every computer. That has to be standardized. That's the essence of precision. So before modern precision machines, there were just machines, okay? Now, at some point in history, whether it was the old-fashioned machines or modern machines, they were made by hand. At some point, they were made only by hand. So it's a chicken or the egg question. So this thing that only modern precision machines can make precision flat surfaces, well, how did they make that originally? Like, where did it just spring up out of the ground? It wasn't created by magic. It had to be made, and the first machines were made by hand. It's a chicken or the egg question. So really, people were doing precise work before, but when it comes to the history of modern precision, it's really the history of standardization of engineering, of tools, of things like standardized measurements of threads and so forth. Joseph Whitworth was pretty much the guy who really introduced precision and standards in engineering. Amongst other things, his micrometer was the first internationally used and recognized. I'll put a link in the description. His rifles were and the bullets were so precisely made. He used hexagonal bullets on hexagonal rifles. They were the bee's knees of sniper rifles, way above anything that was made before. And again, precision made that you could interchange parts. But the origin of his precision come from what's called the Joseph Whitworth free plate technique to make granite surface plates. This is the origin of metrology, of straight edge. Again, very important figure, because essentially his standard definition of the inch, for instance, was the one which was used in engineering. The granite surface plate, essential flatness, actual precision flatness, not Uncharted X lost high technology definition of precision. It actually means something. And how was that achieved? It was achieved by hand. The Whitworth free plate technique. This is anyone remotely interested in precision and fascinated as much as Uncharted X is, should know this as like 101 stuff, basic stuff. Before they made these precision machines, they had to define flatness, and that's the surface plate. Whitworth free plate technique. They still make them like this. They still calibrate them like this. Same with mirrors and lenses. It's actually handcrafted is much better than a machine, because a machine doesn't have that randomness in that factor there. A machine will just do exactly, will repeat the process, and that's not good for creating flatness and these type of things, and that's why they're still made by hand and calibrated by hand. Surface plate, precise flatness. Whitworth free plate technique, based on an ancient polishing technique. Ancient polishing technique being the basis for the flat plate precision technology. Now, flat plate, once you get a precision flat plate, which is measured across the entirety of the flat plate, unlike the surface roughness indicator, which is taking a square centimetre, or a tiny little bit of area, actual flatness is determined across a large area, not just a small little area. So again, using a surface roughness indicator shows a complete lack of understanding of this topic on even the most basic level of there. So yeah, links will be in the description. This is 100% verified science. Everyone remotely interested in precision, this is where it started. Your knowledge of that should start from this. It is it is absolutely ridiculous for Ben to state that we need advanced modern machines to achieve advanced flatness. Secondly, the flatness at the Serapeum or the Barabar Caves does not exist. It is not there. You do not need a micrometer or a repeat meter or any other actual tool for measuring these types of things to see it. You can just see it by the reflection itself, and they are not precise. They are not flat, even by very rough handworking standards. So, and then for him to say, well, the burden of proof is on you, you must explain this. Well, the burden of, he's leading tours and charging people, and he's completely ignorant in these. This should be front and center when it comes to that. So precision flat plates, originally made by hand, just utterly ridiculous to say we need advanced machines to do it, because they had to have an origin. Where did they come from? They didn't just appear. You can't, if you can't calibrate it, the machine to begin with, then how is it precise? This is either a complete ignorance, total lack of understanding, or deliberate deceptiveness. But either way, just piss poor research. You don't understand a single thing. Don't believe a word these people are telling you, because they don't understand, or they do, and to sell their overpriced tours, they're selling you rubbish, absolute nonsense, illogical nonsense, ignorant of the basics. There's nothing good that can be said about this. It is just pure rubbish.
We, in today's modern civilization, can only achieve such precision and flatness with the use of very sophisticated mechanized and computer-guided tools and technology.
So this Barabar Caves, It's always the same spot and the same time of day to get this mirror polish reflection. Now, these are photos sourced from the internet, but let's look at the BAM one. Okay, so go to the BAM site, the builders of the ancient mysteries. Building ancient mystery. Look, I have a measuring device. Therefore, all right, so new evidence for ancient technology, for ancient precision, because I've got a measuring device. I have a pipe and a lab coat. All right, so it is just silly. So here's a clip, one of their preview clips. Can you guess where and when this glass-like mirror reflections of the Barabar Caves will be? No prizes for guessing. There it is, same location, same time of day. Well, screw me sideways. Who would have guessed that? Who would have guessed that? Okay, now, bottom left and bottom centre, we see those other images, and all these other images are from BAM. And what do we have? The same thing again. Firstly, the reflection is not high quality to begin with, and it's always at the same place, same time of day, except for this one here we see on the bottom right. It's another of the Barabar Caves, same, but lower quality. All the images you see here are from BAM, and they're doing exactly the same thing. Being there and hanging around to take those photos, they would have obviously known, they do know that this mirror reflection does not exist outside of that particular spot. This is the best that they have to offer. Again, it's an angle of the light. The camera is never shown. This cave is so heavily distorted, it is so far from flat or mirror polish precision, it is laughable that this would be presented. Well, the thing is that they cherry pick the best results and then say that this is indicative of the entire cave or the entire cave complex. This is not high quality finishing, even by primitive hand working standards. This is just not good. Now, notice again, now in the very center of the image, we see a very poor quality reflection again. Again, it's the angle of the camera, the angle of the light. Just to highlight that, didn't really come up well, but it's a cheap magician's trick. Light and angles, smoke and mirrors. That's all this is. They know this. They were hanging around at the site all day. They could have taken 1,000 mirror reflections of images of the camera, of the person behind the camera, but it's always the same location. It's always the same trick of light. They know this. Obviously they know this. Obviously they were there documenting with their surface roughness indicator, but they were not able to provide one, firstly, high quality reflection, and it's always at the same spot. This is a trick. They know this. Now, you could argue that they were sort of ignorant of this and they just sort of taken it on good faith, but they've been there. They've produced this documentary. They've spent hours and thousands of dollars traveling the world, editing, producing, promoting this particular video, but they didn't spend even a couple of hours just rubbing stones together to try and replicate this and to get that polish. 10 to 20 minutes using nothing but sand and water. These people, they don't understand the basic principles of what they're talking about. How can someone who does not understand the basic principles of sandpaper somehow be telling anyone else about high lost technology? They're researchers for truth. They travel the world. The amount of video editing time, traveling time. You think that for even just an hour they would have got 2 rocks and rubbed them together to do this experiment. But they don't. Well, because maybe they have. But the thing is, they do understand these. Let's be frank. They do understand these basic principles, and they conceal and hide these because they're making the moolah, they're making the shekels, they're making the cash. We know what they're after. They claim to be researchers for truth and diligence and all this other, and these are just blatant lies. They are. It's not about lazy or ignorance. They know this, and well, how can I be sure of that? Okay, well, firstly, this precision. Still to this day, they're promoting the Serapeum at Saqqara and those coffers there as some sort of precision. They are not precision. Just like with the Barabar Caves and the distortions of the light, you don't need advanced precision measuring devices to tell you that. The Serapeum Saqqara, you don't even need to go there with advanced measuring devices to tell you. Just by a visual inspection and the reflections, absolutely not machined precision. Sabbatical not. This cannot be argued. I'll put the links to these videos in the description, and there's still the Sabu or the Schist Disc, one of the most imprecise, roughly things that probably ever been made, and they still claim you that this is precision. Again, that link in the description. This cannot be. Just look at it. Anyone who's looked at it, cursory examination of it, cursory examination of the reflections and the obvious imprecise Serapeum boxes. This cannot be argued. This is just not true. They claim, they'll show you in the background. He has books of hieroglyphs in the background. Look at the book. Look at my books in the background. I'm obviously a diligent reader. They haven't read. They only see what they want to see. They only read what they want to read. So it's a bit strange that people so obsessed with precision engineering and stonework can be so utterly ignorant on the topic that they require skeptical experimentalists to explain it to them. And then the burden of proof is on us experimentalists, because apparently Uncharted X and PLEA are exempt from all responsibility, including doing basic research on the very topic that they are so dedicated to understanding. It's for the benefit of mankind and the truth and its future, no less. This, talk about getting on your soapbox, mate. Oh God, screw me sideways. Entitlement level 9,000, that others should have to do their work for them, while they're charging people to go on these tours and actively saying the Serapeum it's precise, and these vases, the precision. They provide no measurements, and even just a cursory examination of these things will tell you straight away not to be done. Not entitlement. So again, Ben invites comments in his videos. So at the end, please comment and tell me, and I'm a diligent, truthful researcher. He invites these, but then he deletes, shadow bans, and blocks responses. He is well aware of the responses from us evil, skeptical experimentalists, but actively hides them from his audience. He's actively censoring information, and so the gloves are off, buddy. It's not only disingenuous, it is cowardly the way that you behave and censor information. And this is a common theme. As a whole, the lost ancient high technology community refuses to acknowledge reality. They complain ad nauseum of censorship and deceit by the evil mainstream academics, yet they run and hide when challenged. They only cite each other's works, and they rehash facts that they know to be untrue. Years ago, they know the Schist, like the Schist Disc, the Serapeum, the vases, the Schist Disc, the Serapeum, the vases. 3 months later, precision, Schist Disc. No, okay, those are untrue. It is not an ad hominem attack to call you a censorious coward when that is how you behave. You deserved to be mocked at this point. You can run and hide all you want, mate. All right, but people are catching on to you. People are catching on to you, mate, and you can fool some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And your cowardly, absolutely cowardly behaviour is what condemns you the most. So that's not an ad hominem to call a fraud, and it's not ad hominem to call a censorious coward a coward. But that's right. He's a shameless grifter. That's what he is. He's a shameless grifter. Just like the master mason and ancient secret keeper Yusef R1. They continually and repeatedly spread information they know to be untrue, and they censor information which challenges their false reality, and they're making a pretty penny from it. A new tour is coming of Egypt, and he's going to say exactly the same things he said before. He's going to point at stones and charge good people good money to watch him point at stones. And then he'll say, well, the vases that have been replicated, they took too long to make. How long for a decent person to save that money to go on one of your tours? That takes a long time as well. But you've got no problem taking their money, even though it takes them a long time and labour to save this up. You're a coward, and you're a cheat, and you're a liar, and Australian liable laws are very strong. Let's go for it. I invite it.
The results shown in this documentary, showing a smoothness or a rugosity much like that of glass, are leagues beyond anything ever done purely by hand.
You serious?
Okay, glass rugosity. Let's do that. No, let's just carry on. They measure the surface roughness, and then he uses glass smoothness, which is less than the measured there. Now, that's cherry-picking facts to suit the narrative. Firstly, because when they do measure the surface roughness, they find the best spots to measure it, and then, look, here are our best results, therefore this defines the entire caves. What about the worst results? Because again, looking at those photos, I can see some very friggin' rough walls, and that would be many, many, many times above that roughness. But you only show the ones that you want us to see. So firstly, glass rugosity. Well, smoothness. This is mass-produced glass that is made by floating it across a pool of molten metal. So they melt the glass down, then they pour it onto a pool of molten metal, and that's how they create mass-produced giant sheets of glass. This glass rugosity, it has to do with mass-produced glass, not with what can be done by hand and by primitive techniques. So it's a false equivalency. So if I went to I could go to a sawmill and get them to cut a big piece of wood, and they're using a particular saw. It's going to be very rough. But I could pay a little bit more money and get a much smoother, much more precise blocked piece of wood. If I choose the rough one, I cannot use that then as a standard for all glass making. The reason for this is because as this is mass produced and floated across this pool of molten metal, usually tin, the worker walking along the side is creating vibrations which creates ripples in the molten pool. Trucks passing by on the nearby highway or driving up the driveway into the factory are creating vibrations which affect this pool of molten metal. That's why this glass for large sheets of glass. Handmade, hand-polished mirrors and glass is still the best. And they measure their smoothness with primitive hand polishing techniques down to nanometers. A nanometer is 1/1000th of a micron is 1/1000th of a millimeter. Hand polishing, they get much, much, much better. You're comparing mass production to precision techniques. Again, cherry picking, false, do you not know anything about your topic? Well, you do, but you present very carefully, edit out, just like with Patrice Pouliot and Bam, you very carefully, very deceitfully edit out and not include all the relevant information to suit your own profit margins at the expense of truth. Such as optical contacting, they get glass so smooth that it bonds to each other. And you cannot tell the piece of glass one from the other. With those bands, that's still that's one of the measurements that they use for optical measuring flatness, is to use bands but they are so flat that it's about how much a human hair grows in a single second. This is done by primitive hand polishing techniques. Make documentaries and lead tour groups pointing at stones and declaring precision. You are completely ignorant of precision and stonework at the best because you haven't done a single hour of stoneworking experiments. This is Dunning-Kruger personified. The topics that they talk about, at best, they are utterly, completely and thoroughly ignorant of. but given the behaviour of censoring information and censoring those, they ask a question, that question gets answered, and then they cowardly refuse to show that response, to show the answer, because they don't want you to. It is, you cannot hide behind ignorance and laziness. All right, you are just frauds at this case.
This isn't a one-off measurement either. This is work that has been repeated across multiple surfaces of multiple objects. Objects like the famous H-blocks at Pumapunku, the boxes of the Serapeum, and the solid granite walls of the Barabar Caves in India. This is work that is utterly and entirely beyond any claims of simple hand tools and primitive technology. These results cannot be ignored. They're empirical, the measurements are repeatable, and they are solid evidence for sophisticated tools and techniques that must have been employed in the distant past. They lead to significant implications for our understanding of the history of human civilization on this planet.
Again, links to these two videos in the description. Again, I have others, but the Serapeum or the Schist Disc are so obviously not precise. Obvious just by a little bit of knowledge, looking at the reflections, or in the case of a Schist Disc, just look at it. It is imprecise. So are the Serapeum. I go through every single one of the boxes there, the coffers. No, they're still selling this precision. Again, either just outright lies or just utterly incompetent in the topics that they're talking about, especially in the Serapeum one. I show the supposed evidence by Chris Dunn, which is whenever you try and pin them down, they say precision in the comments or their videos, they refuse. They can never provide any measurements. The fact is you don't need measurements, you just need to look at the boxes. They're not precise, they're not flat, they're not square. They are handmade. If it was a machine that made them, it is the crappiest machine ever made. Final point on this would be the measurements. Now, we're seeing 2D images, so he's taken laser scans. Is that at one particular point of a wall? Is it at the end or the far end, or is it at the middle, or it is an average taken over them? Because just by looking at the footage that they provide of the caves, even though it flashes around, you can see that the caves is not this smooth, perfect thing that they're trying to imply there. So exactly how were these measurements taken? And now let's assume that it was not just let's say it was consistent across the entirety of the caves. Then what about in Europe, the pre-mechanized advanced precision machining measurements that we're taking, and their ability to make such measurements as well? Why is that not a question of advanced precision machining, impossible to do, yet it is in other parts of the world? And do they not understand the history of measuring tools or craftsmanship and what people are able to achieve? The final thing will be, well, how did they do a string, a measuring cord, and how did they make a circle? Well, I find a focal point and then I use a string and I measure the circle across. Now, this is a mystery. They couldn't work these things out for themselves. They couldn't look at other sites before Joseph Whitworth and all the cathedrals and measure the distances between the columns or the arches and so forth have this precision. Why is that not?
So let me make something of a plea, and this goes out to all the skeptics of this topic and to all the experimentalists who have declared victory simply because they have shown that it is possible to shape stone with primitive tools and technologies. Not that I think anyone has ever really disputed that, and certainly I haven't.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Please watch this documentary, and please try to replicate these results using the methods you claim can achieve them. Even try to just explain them from your primitive technology perspective. I'd be quite entertained to hear it. The only actually honest way to address these results, if you're claiming that you know how it was done, is to first acknowledge them, then account for them, and then try to replicate the most difficult aspects of these objects. I'm not claiming that I know how these were done, so the burden of proof here isn't on me, it's on you. In my...
So Ben claims the burden of proof is on us. Well, that actually works both ways for both people, but the burden of truth relies on both of us as well. And you speak of precision, you don't know what it means. You say that Serapeum is precise or the Schist Disc is precise. They are not. They are objectively not. You don't need precision machining. Again, with just by looking at the reflections and the distortions in there, it is not flat. It is, and so it's so cheeky for you to say this must be replicated and that it's precision machined. And well, you don't know, or you're continually lying about this. And given the fact that you aggressively censor all the information contrary to that which you want to promote, you're not interested in the truth. And at best, and you just don't know what the hell you're talking about, buddy. You're just making BS up, and then playing this high horse thing that, well, they shouldn't ad hominem me. That's your shtick to say that the academics are covering this up and they keep moving things around so it can't be seen. It's all a cover up. It's a cover up, I tells you. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and the burden of proof is more on you because you're charging people large amounts to go around, point at stones and tell them things that are objectively untrue. So just stop it with this high horse thing and the burden of proof.
In my opinion, the only truly valid experiments would be those that follow the simple four-step test as outlined by Christopher Dunn in his book, Lost Technology of Ancient Egypt, which goes something like this. 1. Have experts examine rigorously and thoroughly the original artifact, paying close attention to the most difficult characteristics to reproduce. 2. Describe the theorized method used by the Egyptians, and you could replace Egyptians here with any of the cultures that you claim built some of these objects. 3. Perform the work, including that which is most difficult. 4. Compare the experimental results with the original artifact, taking into account all the characteristics of the original. So bear...
You serious?
And finally, in regards to this point that we must acknowledge the Serapeum or the Schist Disc, well, I do acknowledge them, and I've looked and I've done them in detail. People have been there to measure them. They are not precise, okay? But perform the work, including that which is most difficult. Well, that, for instance, in the Serapeum boxes would be the trihedral corners, which has been done with flint and granite, which you flint tools and sandstone, or you could polish that off with granite. So that's been achieved. Like, what are you saying can't be done? Now, but this, okay, Christopher Dunn's 4 points. Well, this is a two-way street, okay, Mr. Dunn. So your time is up into there. You can no longer hide behind incompetence or I made a mistake, and I'll do this directly. Two-way street. Why don't the lost high technologists ever critique themselves? Why don't they examine the claims made by Christopher Dunn? Because if they do, they're in for a very rude shock. But they know this, okay, and it's very important to hide this because he's their godfather. He's their go-to expert. He's across the lost high technology people. He's across ancient aliens. He's the I'm an engineer. I'm a precision craftsman, and like this cannot be done. This cannot be so forth. Well. You shouldn't be saying things like this. Let's examine and let's try to compare, because this works it's a two-way street. So that'll be for the very near future. I've already actually covered it, but that was at the end of a very long video. I'll do that just as a short one.